This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Real Talk. This episode, we'll start pretty close to home in just a second. Edmonton's mayor, who's taken leave to seek a seat in what he hopes will be Mark Carney's government, Amarjeet Sohi, will join us to talk about taking leave from Edmonton City Council and throwing his hat in the ring again into the arena of federal politics. On the back half of this episode, we're excited to announce another project of ours, another collaboration through this federal election campaign. On our most recent episode, we introduced you to Vicky Mochama, who's going to be hosting a brand new podcast, Party All the Time, every single Friday through this federal election campaign. You'll be able to get it on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. And we're also going to be partnering with the team at Politico. They've got their correspondents, their journalists working across the country through this campaign once a week. We'll be checking in with them today. It's with Nick Taylor-Vaisey, who's in Hamilton. He was at the Poilievre rally last night. I'm also going to be contributing to their Playbook, to Politico's Playbook. You can read it at Politico.com. Every Thursday, my columns will be out, a view on the federal campaign from the prairies, from the province of Alberta. So we'll invite you to check it out. More on that in just a bit. First, I want to let you know that this episode of Real Talk would not happen without the support of Alberta's top online real estate school. That's Relo at relo.ca. You can find them online. And that's where you can learn more about their bundles, their Alberta commercial real estate bundle, their Alberta residential real estate bundle. Relo is Alberta's top online real estate school for obvious reasons, and you'll figure that out right away as soon as you check it out. Real estate learning online for the bold and ambitious. Wherever you're at in your career, Relo will help you find the next level. They're the only real estate school that sets you up with a professional practice network, professional development webinars, and more. If you're interested in unlimited earning potential and getting your butt out of the cubicle, working for yourself instead of somebody else, check out their pre-licensing courses. If you pick up that residential or commercial real estate bundle, make sure you use the promo code Ryan100. That's all one word. It'll knock $100 off both of those bundles at relo.ca. Well, just a number of hours ago, it was settled at City Hall. Edmonton's Mayor Amarjeet Sohi will take an unpaid leave to campaign. He wants to win the riding of Edmonton Southeast and return to Ottawa as a Liberal MP. There will be a mayor serving in the meantime, a deputy mayor. We'll get to that in just a bit. Of course, it's got a lot of people wondering, what does this mean for the Liberals' fortunes in Alberta? Everybody looks at the Prairie Province as a conservative stronghold, but so he's won here before. Liberal MPs have won here before under Justin Trudeau. Can they do it again? Let's find out as we welcome Amarjeet Sohi to the studio. I don't know if I call you mayor or not. You've stepped away. How long did you know that this was going to be the plan?
Well, this devolved very rapidly. It was not an easy decision for me to make because, I love our city. This is a city that has given me so much. I came here as a working class immigrant. This city has lifted me up. And this city has offered me so much opportunity, and I've been serving this city from the day I moved here, and will continue to do so into the future, regardless of whatever happens through the political sphere. So when Prime Minister Carney took over, got elected, and became the Prime Minister, I was approached by his senior transition team if I would be interested to step up, be the voice of Edmonton, and run in this upcoming election. And then I had a meeting with the Prime Minister Carney when he was here on last Thursday. So I had to think hard about it. I would say, Ryan, in normal circumstances, I would have said no.
Are you telling me that you, within a week of the time that we're talking right now, had not even considered or certainly had not decided to do it?
Absolutely. Prior, during the leadership contest, I was paying attention to the leadership, and I was stayed in touch with some of my former colleagues. So we were watching that. But I would not have done it if Prime Minister Carney was not elected the leader of the Liberal Party, because I see something in him that I would say is so timely at a time when we are facing some of the most unprecedented times that we ever faced in our history of our country, and so much turbulence, so much uncertainty. And this election is going to be the most consequential elections in Canadian history. And I see that Mark Carney has the temperament, has the skill set and the experience to lead our country in the new direction, building a stronger economy and really working out the relationship with the United States. So when I was approached, I was asked if I would consider, and I gave it a serious thought with my colleagues, not my colleagues, with my family, with friends and people who have been supporting me for a while, and made this difficult decision. But I think it's the right decision, because if Liberals do form the government, we need strong voices from Edmonton, and we need strong voices that have experience, that has the kind of calm temperament to get through these difficult times. I think I have that. I have the experience, and I got big things done when I was a federal minister, and I got big things done as mayor as well. So I think I can take that experience and be the voice of Edmonton during these most challenging times. Think about it for a minute. Like, Edmonton is the 4th largest city in Canada, and we are the 5th largest economy in Canada. We are being impacted by the tariffs. We are being impacted what the global geopolitical situation. And as we navigate this, as we build our new economy and better economy, we need voices from Edmonton, and we need voices from Edmonton region to be at the table if Liberals form the government.
What was your decision, or where was your head at up until the point that the Carney team reached out to you to within the last week when you decided to run? Were you intending on running again as mayor of Edmonton this fall?
I was in the kind of a contemplation phase, thinking phase. I had not made the final decision because a lot has changed at a local level too. The introduction of political parties, the introduction of Bill 18, Bill 20, and so many other considerations that I was thinking about. But I must say that I am so impressed with my council colleagues, the work they have done over the last 3.5 years, and how strong this team is. So I am very comfortable making this decision that the work that we initiated of building core municipal services, improving public safety, improving public transit, including safety on public transit, and other steps we have taken, that work will continue.
Cliff is in our live chat right now, powered by Park Power. He says, how does Amarjeet Sohi think it's appropriate to not resign as mayor to run federally? Taking a leave of absence is the literal definition of having his cake and eating it too. Why not resign?
So I've been very clear during this process that that I would not be running for mayor, regardless of the outcome of this.
In other words, if you lose here, you're not running for mayor.
Absolutely. I've been very clear that whether I lose or win as a federal MP, I would not be running for mayor.
It'd be a tough look to run for mayor after losing as MP. Would you agree?
And also, I think we need time for other candidates who ever want to run to prepare to run for mayor. So I think it's important that I make that absolutely clear to Edmontonians. Municipal government allows local elected officials to take leave without pay to run for provincial office or federal office. It's not new. It has been the practice. It has been the practice here in Edmonton. It has been the practice in other provinces as well, and throughout Alberta and Canada. So that's the process I'm following.
Jeffrey Hansen Carlson, an Edmonton construction professional. He's one of the founders of TAP YEG, which was the first political party in YEG. And he's been on a bit of a public campaign over the past week from his platform, talking about your run for the Liberals in 2015, talking about your run now as well. He says this is the second time that Sohi's left municipal government to seek a federal promotion. He's calling you a political opportunist. What would you respond?
What I would say to Edmontonians is that look at my track record. When I served in that role from 2015 to 2019, both as infrastructure minister and then natural resources minister. As infrastructure minister, I put together the largest infrastructure plan in Canadian history, and that plan has benefited Edmonton. The funding for Yellowhead expansion would not have happened without my advocacy, my leadership. 82nd Avenue, 50th Street rail crossing, which has been a long-standing irritant for a lot of people living in the southeast part of the city. And we have been asking federal government to step up. But I was there. I was able to secure investment in that. Now the overpass is being built. Investment into Nate's Innovation Technology Center would not have happened. Investment that we brought into University of Alberta for more innovation, investment to technology and the research would not have happened without my leadership. And I can list so many other investments that I was able to advocate and secure for Edmonton, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars investment. But on top of that, I really want to stress, my leadership on Trans Mountain pipeline expansion was essential to get that pipeline built. If I was not sitting in that cabinet advocating for that pipeline, and if I was not appointed the Minister of Natural Resources to fix the broken process on Indigenous consultation and put together a plan to deal with the federal court decision of overturning the original decision of the cabinet, I got that project under back on track in a short amount of time. Now that project is built, it has hugely benefited Alberta's economy, Canadian economy, Alberta government revenue. It has actually increased the valuation of every oil and gas company in Alberta. So it's such a significant, so anyone who's thinking about why I'm doing this because I think I can be a voice at the table to deliver more for Edmonton and Alberta, and particularly for our capital region.
Do you think that you and a Mark Carney government could get another pipeline built across Canada? There's more talk now. There seems to be more of an open-mindedness. I'm not saying that it would be a guarantee, but we're starting to see Canadians in Quebec. We're starting to see Canadians in Eastern Canada that have opposed projects like Energy East start musing now about other export options, considering what's happening with the United States.
We are seeing a shift, a fundamental shift in the thinking among Canadians about what we need to do to develop our natural resources and how we are going to transport those resources not only within Canada but also beyond the U.S. markets. So coming back to the TMX project is the only pipeline built in 4 decades under my leadership that is opening up markets for Canadian oil and gas, particularly Alberta oil, to markets beyond the United States.
Why do you think the Liberals don't get a lot of credit for that in Alberta?
Because it gets lost on a lot of other stuff, right? So, but here now, I think in this moment of time, Canadians are thinking differently how we view our natural resources and how we transport. I think this is a moment to reduce our dependency on imported oil. And we can actually build infrastructure, national trades, transportation, and energy corridor that connects our country from coast to coast to coast to reduce our dependency on foreign oil and make our country more reliant on Canadian oil and gas and natural resources. At the same time, continue to invest in renewable energy, but more importantly, expand our international markets. And I have done that. And that's the leadership is necessary at the national stage.
You're obviously, you're knocking on doors right now, and you've got to, I guess, change people's minds or reiterate a few different things. Number one, about your own personal political ambitions. Number two, your connection to the Trudeau government. You were a cabinet minister under Justin Trudeau, and it was obvious what was happening with the former Liberal leader, the former prime minister, who enjoyed about a 10-year run. But, yeah. The plane was crashing. And then there's been a remarkable turnaround in polling for the Liberals. And I think that's because many Canadians, Carney's campaign and messaging has successfully convinced many Canadians, that he is indeed different from Justin Trudeau. Of course, his opponents, Pierre Poilievre, we're going to be talking about him in just a little bit, reiterating Carney was his financial advisor. Carbon tax Carney, he's more of the same. He's Trudeau 2.0. What are you telling people at the doors is the biggest difference between the two leaders and the biggest difference in look or potential or action of what their two governments would deliver?
So I have been out of federal politics since 2019, right? So, and during that time, I got to serve as mayor, and I have seen what more the federal and provincial governments can do by working together to help local communities grow our economy and deal with some of the social issues. So what I'm seeing over the last couple of weeks since Prime Minister Carney has taken over the leadership and the country, that he is really demonstrating action, that is really demonstrating how we can get things done. His international visits, his work in Canada, his visit to Edmonton to unlock housing in Canada, and the housing plan that he has launched. And there's a lot of actually I can offer at the national stage, because Edmonton has been a leader when it comes to unlocking housing affordability and how to build better, build fast, and really retain our housing diversity, housing choice and affordability. So I think he has demonstrated that he can get big things done, and that is the platform we are building together. And we're going to build better economy, the best economy in the G7. We have the potential to do that. We can turn this unprecedented crisis into opportunities to build better Canada, a stronger Canada, a Canada that works for everyone, Canada that delivers for working families, working people, and our communities. And that is one of the reasons that I see a lot of potential, and that's one of the reasons I am stepping up into this role.
Are you going to be endorsing anybody for mayor?
No, I would not be, because that is not my role. The local, mayors are elected by local people, local Edmontonian. As an Edmontonian, I will have my vote, right? So I will have my choice, but I'm not going to get involved in the mayoral election. That is absolutely up to Edmontonians to decide.
What do you make of rumors that former Mayor Stephen Mandel may return to the scene, may seek a seat on council? What do you think?
Well, Stephen and I work together really well. Stephen has done some remarkable things for this city. And I was glad to be part of his team to doing so, and I learned a lot from him. He's a remarkable leader in our city. Have tons of respect for him. But I'm pretty sure others will step up too, right? And there'll be interesting election to watch.
How would you? It's always interesting to talk to a politician when they're sort of wrapping up a chapter in their career. And I mean, if you win as MP, you're obviously not coming back, and if you lose, you've said that you're not going to run again. So this is it. How would you define your legacy as mayor of Edmonton?
So when we got elected in October 2021, vast majority of council members, we did not know each other. So we invested in each other. We got to know each other. We lifted each other up. The beautiful part of being Edmontonian, what I admire being Edmontonian, what this community can do for each other, is lift people up. Really invest in people, and that's exactly what we have done. So here's what we have done. We have fixed our broken financial sustainability challenges. When I got elected, I had to deal with $89 million of structural deficit because previous council reduced taxes or froze taxes. So we fixed that problem. I also inherited that previous council did not properly budget to pay for our workers, for our employees. They gave them 0% increases. Who is going to accept 0% increases in a highest inflationary pressure when people's living standards are being impacted by that? And we fixed that problem. Now we are treating our workers with dignity, with respect, and we are giving them fair wages. That obviously led to some tax increases. I admit that, but we needed to make those decisions. We have invested back in public safety. Edmonton Police Service got 20% increase under this council because we take public safety seriously. We have invested back in public transit. The last investment we saw in public transit before my election was in 2018, 2016, 2017. when we were doing restructuring of the bus network. Now we have a better transit system, particularly bus system. Our transit system is safer today than it was 3 years ago. Most importantly, what I'm proud, it is safer. I'll tell you the
I don't know if the public's convinced about that.
Absolutely. Public perception is something we have to deal with. Absolutely. More needs to be done. Absolutely more needs to be done. But you talk to downtown folks, our downtown is safer today than it was 3 years ago. Our public transit is safer today than it was 3 years ago. Crime is lowest in a decade in Edmonton. Yes, we've got more to do, and we have laid a strong foundation to carry on that work. Our police service is the highest funded police service in Canada. We have hired more mobile officers, more peace officers, and we have invested in crisis diversion where people are actually being people are connected to services, social services. And I have built a stronger relationship with the provincial government, and we got some big wins from the provincial government as well, regardless of some of the rocky relationship that we had with them.
Which relationship do you think is rockier? Alberta municipalities, like cities like Edmonton and the province, or the province and the federal Liberal government?
I think this is a moment to unite.
Well, yeah, everybody will say that, but what do you think is the rockier relationship?
For example, what I have been able to achieve working with the provincial government, regardless of the strained relationship, what I have been able to do, build a very strong personal, professional working relationship with Premier's office, and other ministers. When Carney was Premier, we had almost 1/3 less shelter capacity compared to Calgary. Today we have parity. We have 1,700 shelters similar to Calgary. We were getting less money to deal with houseless population in Edmonton, and we fixed that problem. Yes, they need to do more. My advocacy on province not paying their property taxes. We got that fixed now because Edmonton was being disproportionately impacted. We're finally getting attraction for province to invest in our downtown. We haven't got $330 million yet, but we got $187 million being invested into our city. That's a huge step forward because of my relationship, my advocacy, and this council is in a good position to carry on that and make sure that we are getting toward that equity and parity with Calgary and many other things that we have been dealing with. So I'm very proud that I can work across the aisles, as I've demonstrated that I can work across the aisles, whether as mayor or as in my previous role as council member, where I worked with Stephen Mandel and others to bring more investment into downtown. Rogers Place was essential. Like I played a critical role in getting Rogers Place done along with Mayor Mandel of that time.
I think Mayor Mandel may take issue with you taking credit for Rogers Place.
Working with him in partnership, in collaboration, and he won't, because he knows that him and I work together on that, right? So
how would you compare the current Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, to those that you would have? I mean, we're talking across the aisle. We don't see it as much. We don't see as much sort of bipartisan efforts in Ottawa, really.
Yeah.
But Pierre Poilievre brings something quite different to the table than did Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, even Stephen Harper. Like, very different personalities, very different presentation, very different political style.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
I think the challenge that we're facing today, the challenges related to geopolitical situation, the relationship with the United States under new administration, the affordability crisis that we continue to face, housing affordability crisis that we continue to face, food prices continue to rise. We need a comprehensive plan to build a new economy. We need a comprehensive plan to build one economy instead of 13 economies in Canada. And unlock more potential. And I see regardless of political affiliations, when as an Edmontonian, if I'm looking at our three leaders, Jagmeet Singh, Pierre Poilievre, and Mark Carney, right? And I see Mark Carney has the right skill set and temperament and experience to lead our country through this crisis, regardless of political affiliation. As someone who has done big things at the international stage, I see him steering our country through this crisis and build economy that will work for everyone, and build a country that will work for everyone.
I find it interesting. You've noted his temperament several times. I think obviously probably you're alluding to the fact there's going to be some unique challenges for whoever the prime minister is in dealing with an unpredictable and somewhat volatile American administration. You were a federal cabinet minister when Donald Trump was elected in 2016. Does this time around feel different to you?
Oh, absolutely. This is different. This is absolutely different. At that time, our sovereignty was not under attack. And the tariffs were very targeted on steel and aluminum. Now, across the board, economy-wide tariffs being imposed are going to have huge, huge implications for every community in Canada and here as well in Edmonton, in our region. And also the challenges at global stage. And these are different times than what we experienced in 2017 and 2018 when Trump was elected. President Trump was elected first time. These are and I come back again, this federal election is going to be the most consequential federal election in the Canadian history. And who we elect is going to shape the future and how we build that future for our country. More resilient future, more diversified international relationships and economy and trade, and more diversified economy in Canada, and more streamlined economy in Canada by getting rid of interprovincial barriers and building strong leadership at a local level.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what anybody can do about removing these interprovincial trade barriers. We've been talking about it for a long time. Nobody's really taken meaningful action on it.
And you're right, it has not happened. But this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call for our country. If we cannot get our acts together now, we are going to fail Canadians. So it's important. It is so essential that we elect the right people, right team that can steer us in that direction, that really are focused on building a resilient economy. We have the potential. Look at our region. Look at our region.
Don't have to convince me.
Right? Like we are a powerhouse in energy.
I asked you about legacy. What about your biggest regret? Or what's one thing you would change or handle differently looking back on your career as Edmonton's mayor?
I would have time to reflect on those as we move forward. I don't have any regrets in that sense, but you can always do better. Always do better in various ways. We have taken some significant steps. I wish that we had a different way of dealing with the tax increases, because it has definitely impacted people's affordability. 2024 tax increase was very difficult for Edmontonians, 8.9% tax increase. But we had to do it because we saw provincial cuts. We had to deal with labor costs because our workers were underpaid and underfunded. And we had to deal with structural deficit. But here's the good news, Ryan. Because we had made those decisions, the rating agencies gave Edmonton the strongest rating in 2024. And moving forward, we would not have to raise taxes to the level that we had to do in the last 3 years, because we needed to catch up on services, catch up on police funding, catch up on underfunding of services. Moving forward, future councils can manage taxes more effectively, and because we have made the tough decisions.
Well, it'll be a wide open race for the next mayor of Edmonton. And in the meantime, obviously a federal election. This certainly a riding to watch. Edmonton Southeast. We'll see what happens there. I want to thank you for making the time to talk to us, Mayor. Appreciate your service to the city of Edmonton.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is my city. I love this city. I will continue to serve this city well beyond the political life that might have, right? So
yeah, I'd ask you what happens if you lose, but no politician wants to answer that question. So
I'll be here.
We'll cover that ground.
I will be serving my city in any volunteer capacity in many other ways. Yeah.
That's Amarjeet Sohi. Let us know what you think to talk at ryanjesperson.com. I know you got to go knock on doors, and we got to head out to Hamilton right now. Before we do, I want to put northroadic.com on your radar right now. That's our friends at North Road Investment Council. One of the things that they offer nobody else is doing. They're leaders in digital risk advice within the wealth management industry. So they've got a specific program. They have a dedicated team member who advises clients on ways to help them make better and safer choices in their digitally connected life. If you're interested in seeing how well you score when it comes to digital risk, make sure you take their quiz online, see how you do. And of course, that's also the best place to connect with Marshall and Carrie and their team. That's North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. Friends, we're proud to be supporting the Full House Lottery. It's time to dream big. It's time to win bigger with Full House Lottery with 3 grand prizes, dream vacations for life, a dream tiny home, plus 31 different winners in that huge early bird car a day giveaway through the month of May. The Full House Lottery has it all. And that's not all. Even more chances to win with the 50-50 extra. The current jackpot is already well over $1 million, so the winner's guaranteed to take home at least $500,000, a life-changing prize you don't want to miss out on. Plus, they've got their big summer bucks calendar. They're kicking off and wrapping up summer with $25,000 cash prizes, $5,000 weekend winners. That'll make your weekend. And $2,000 daily prizes. This is the perfect way to keep the excitement going all summer long. And every single ticket, of course, supports the University of Alberta and Royal Alexandra Hospitals. You can get your tickets today at fullhouse.ca. Freson Brothers has a couple of things coming up in the next little bit. We want to make sure they're on your radar. A Filipino feast. Freson Brothers hosting it for the very first time ever, coming up on April 5th and 6th at all of Freson Brothers Fresh Market stores. Don't miss out on tasting authentic Filipino dishes cooked by Freson Brothers' team of Red Seal chefs. An all-you-can-eat feast featuring famous Filipino dishes, all for just $25 per person. That includes the salad bar, by the way. Don't miss out. That's April 5th and 6th from 4 to 6 p.m. at all Freson Brothers Fresh Market stores. You can find all the details on their website. That's freson.com. California Closets, proudly Canadian-owned and operated, reminding you that they've got free consultations ready to be booked on their websites, californiaclosets.ca. When you do that, when you register, you'll meet with one of their designers, proudly based right here in Alberta, and they'll talk to you about how they can work with your budget, your vision, to create a custom closet system or solution, no matter where you need it in the home. Could be the laundry room, could be the garage, could be the family entertainment room, wherever it is. California Closets does it better than anybody else. And everything's manufactured right here in Alberta. How cool is that? All guaranteed for life. You can request that free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. And John, I don't know about you, but I'm getting excited for the Real Talk Golf Classic. That's coming up on the 19th of June. That's a Thursday, 2 o'clock tee time, a shotgun start at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. We're really excited to be going back to the Ranch. They are the busiest and best tournament course in Alberta. There's no doubt about that. If you're in charge and your team, your charity, your organization of booking that golf tournament, consider hosting your golf tournament at the Ranch. Their team is a dream to deal with. You can get all the details and make contact with them, plus tour the course virtually today at theranchgolf.com. Well, Real Talk is proud to be partnering with Politico through this federal election campaign to bring you coverage from across the country and, of course, to make a contribution as well to their Playbook. You'll be able to read my perspectives from the prairies every Thursday at Politico.com, and once a week we'll be checking in with their journalists that are literally traveling across the country, obviously covering the campaigns. That includes Nick Taylor-Vaisey, who was at the Pierre Poilievre rally in Hamilton last night. We're going to get to Nick in just a second. John, why don't we go to a couple of the moments here from Pierre Poilievre. Obviously, keep in mind, Real Talkers, this is Steel Town. This is a manufacturing center. This is, of course, where talk about things like tariffs on steel and aluminum will resonate. It's also close, relatively close, proximity-wise, to Toronto, where big battlegrounds have been established as we get set to find out who will form the next federal government. Pierre Poilievre wants to lead that. He wants to be prime minister. And here's a little bit of what he told those gathered in Hamilton just hours ago.
they replaced the much hated Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and hand-picked successor, and said you should just forget about the last 10 years where they doubled housing costs, doubled the national debt, doubled the lineups at our food banks, doubled violent crime, and they said, elect them for a fourth time. The liberal establishment has anointed our next leader, who's not even been elected, but is also already acting like he runs the world. This guy. And I don't want to run the world. I want to put you back in charge of your life. I'm not running to take power. I'm running to give it back.
All right. Nobody manages a crowd quite like Pierre Poilievre. Nick Taylor-Vaisey was there. He's the Ottawa bureau chief for Politico Canada, and he's joining us from Ontario this morning. Nick, thanks for making time for us. What did you make of the rally last night? You were inside.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped. There was energy there. The party claimed there were about 4,500 people in the room. I don't know how to estimate a crowd like that from the vantage point we have, but it was a lot of people. I was caught in a traffic jam along the way. I wondered if it was just rush hour, but no, it was people going to the rally in the east end of Hamilton in Stony Creek. It was reminiscent of his leadership rallies when he was running for conservative leader a couple of years back. It was like that sort of like zealous, enthusiastic, almost like just friendly heckling as he went, just trying to amp him up even more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, he's really good with crowds, and you kind of can hear him managing the boos. Obviously, when he's referencing the Liberal government, when he's referencing Justin Trudeau, and we heard some of the language around the unelected Mark Carney, who's acting like he runs the world kind of stuff, and then the cheers as well. What do we know, or what can you tell us about this part of Ontario, about Hamilton, about you know the way that it's voted in past, and some of the issues that are facing voters today?
Well, people in Hamilton, I mean, this is steel town, like you said. They live on the razor's edge when there are tariffs. Tariffs on steel are going to hit this city. They just are. Like, there are going to be layoffs. There was some word this morning coming out of one of the companies that they will be laying people off because of the tariffs. And it's a story you hear across southwestern Ontario. Windsor, I was there a couple days ago. Ottotown. Kitchener as well, in between these two places, which is also quite export dependent. And the Canadian Chamber of Commerce recently listed Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, that sort of tri-city area as the fourth most trade exposed place in Canada. So there's actual anxiety here. It's not like just stats and news stories quoting trade officials and trade experts and profs. And these are people, when you talk to them at the doorstep, they're actually feeling worried about their livelihoods and about like the homes they own.
Yeah.
And they don't want to lose their homes.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Poilievre obviously dialed into that last night. For those that didn't have a chance to catch his speech at the rally, here's more of him talking specifically about those steel tariffs.
And then there's the industrial carbon tax. Now, this part, I have to give Mr. Carney credit. He's been honest. He wants an industrial carbon tax. And he was asked, who would pay it? And he said, well, don't worry. Canadians don't have to pay it because it will go on things like steel. And nobody uses steel anymore, he said. Has he been to Hamilton lately? I think he was over, was it in the Sioux? He went to a steel plant. They weren't welcoming him very warmly over there. He could only find Liberal MPs to stand behind them. Imagine how little you have to know about the economy to think that we can have a modern economic civilization without steel. Steel is literally the bones of a modern economy. You tax steel, you tax everything. And that is one of the reasons. That is one of the reasons why conservatives, a new conservative government, will put Canada first by axing the carbon tax for everything, for everybody, for real, for good, for a change.
So there you have it. There's some talk about the carbon tax, and Nick, we can dig into that. But when you're talking about steel, how are you not talking about Donald Trump? He's not taking aim at the American president like you think he might.
No, he named him a few times last night, but only in reference to the basic context. He's not going after the president. Like, Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, and Justin Trudeau before him took direct aim at the president, like using quite harsh rhetoric. And today, Mark Carney is in Windsor. The backdrop for his announcement was the Ambassador Bridge that connects to the other side and to Detroit. And it's a balance that Poilievre has to strike, because he knows, just like we know, that there is a significant chunk of his base who doesn't mind MAGA, doesn't mind Donald Trump. And so he doesn't want to slam him too much. But he does want to connect Trump to the tariffs, to the jobs, because he knows, again, Poilievre knows just like we do, that that's the ballot issue right now. People are concerned about affordability. They're concerned about crime. They're concerned about all these things. But more than anything, they're concerned about just having somebody to help them stay employed, right? And give them a hand if they lose their jobs.
What were you picking up on? Like, obviously being in the room, you're going to notice so many other things that we're not noticing from watching a YouTube video, a poor quality one at that, by the way. I apologize to our audience, but we're doing our best to get audio from the speech. but what did you, so you're telling us you can feel like the palpable energy. There's like a traffic jam outside and there's like boos and cheers and, people are kind of worked up. What was the response when Trump's name did come up? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Because I think, there's been a lot of people commenting on this balancing act, that this sort of tightrope, I guess, that Pierre Poilievre's got to walk, which is, number one, a decent portion of his base would probably be sympathetic to, or friendly to, or warm to, or unabashedly supportive of Donald Trump. And then a big part of his base also would expect to see leadership and a commitment to Canadian sovereignty. And I mean, just look at the blowback on Danielle Smith's remarks, saying that Pierre Poilievre aligns with the new direction of America. Nightmare for Poilievre. Would you agree? What did you pick up in Hamilton?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that entire assessment. And I think notably, like on the speechifying part of this, Trump was never an applause line. He was never a crescendo. He was always, when he mentioned him, which is only a few times, mid-sentence. So he never really gave the crowd a chance to react to the name Trump. He only gave the crowd a chance to react to whatever the point of the sentence was, which was usually, I love steel jobs. I love helping you. I want you to succeed. And we all in this room want liberals to fail. So Trump was just the connective tissue, but he was never the oomph. He was never the impact. Again, he was only mentioned essentially in passing, I think, just to contextualize the origin story of the tariffs, but never as the whammy, never. He was never the enemy in the room that night.
So this was like this is obviously a friendly crowd. It's a rally, but bigger picture across Ontario, everybody knows. I mean, federal elections go this way. If you want to be the prime minister, if you want to form government, especially a majority government, you got to do well in Vancouver, or, a greater Vancouver. You got to do well in Toronto. You got to do well in Quebec. Bigger picture as we zoom out across the province. Provincially, we've seen, barometer-wise, Doug Ford's progressive conservative government wins another majority, although I know a lot of people, especially Western Canadians, might characterize Doug Ford as a liberal. But what do you sense, or what are you picking up are some of the key storylines in Canada's most populated province?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because all the leaders are spending time here for the first week because it's conveniently located in the middle of the country, I think, more than anything. And it has all these seats. But they haven't spent a ton of time in the Greater Toronto area. They're strategic. As a whole, I mean, all of the leaders. They're being strategic, and they're hitting their spots where they have specific messages. So Hamilton, steel, tariffs, Windsor, autos, border. And then some of the spots in between where there are battlegrounds where they each party will see some opportunity to pick something up. So they want some face time there, like places like London and Kitchener. There are competitive ridings in each of those places, and they connect each of these nodes in this first several days. But we can expect them to spend a ton more time, obviously, in the Greater Toronto area as the campaign rolls on. It's a quick campaign. It's like 5 weeks, and we're halfway through the first one already. It feels like it's been 2 weeks, but it's only been 3 days.
Yeah.
But they have to spend time in those places, and the broad trends look like this huge shift. Like 8 or 9 or 10 weeks ago, it really looked like Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives were going to sweep a lot of those 905 area ridings, like from Burlington to Oakville to Mississauga, Brampton, Vaughan, all the way across east to Whitby on the other side of Toronto. And now the aggregators like Philippe Fournier, who I know you know and have on the show, are showing a lot of red on that map. And so it could become desperate times if the polls are correct and if the aggregators are giving us the right aggregation. For Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, it could also lead to overconfidence among Liberals who see all that red on those sites and say, "Well, I mean, why do we
Yeah.
be here?"
We saw some new polling. Sacha Curl from Angus Reid put out some numbers here just the other day. Polled about 2,400 Canadians. Take it for what it's worth, but pretty interesting among the 18 to 34 crowd. So the relatively younger voters, also least likely to show up and vote, by the way. But 33% Conservative. This is federal vote intention. By age and gender, 18 to 34-year-old males, 33% Conservative, 42% Liberals, 35 to 54 males. It's almost a split, 45% Conservatives, 41% Liberals, and then the Conservatives do a little bit better as the males get older to the 55 plus. On the female side, 18 to 34, just a quarter intend to vote for the Conservatives, 42% for the Liberals, and the Liberals enjoy a lead across the age demographics with female voters. 35 to 54-year-old females, 36% of them intend to vote Conservative, 45% for the Liberals. And look at this. What a spread with the 55-plus crowd. About 29% intend to vote Conservative, 58% intend to vote for the Liberals. Now, none of this is guaranteed. All that really matters is how people vote on the 28th of April, on that Monday. But what do those numbers say to you in particular? I mean, in the context of the turnaround over the past few months, but still, with regards to solidified support. This is vote intention.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's the red bars are so much bigger than anyone expected them to be. But there's a caveat here. And I think if there's something that keeps Liberals up right now, it is some of the other polling on how solid that vote intention really is. And so you have typically the trends showing that Conservative support, the bedrock of it, is strong. And so that might be a little bit of what we witnessed last night in Hamilton East Stony Creek. Was there are a lot of people in a place like Hamilton who are locked in for Pierre Poilievre and so motivated that they want to drive across town to go to a warehouse where they can go cheer their guy on. Liberals, their support seems to be much softer. So a lot of people are parking their vote with them, but not fully telling pollsters anyway. They're not fully decided. And so they're leaning, they're considering, they look at Mark Carney and they see him as maybe the leader for anxious times, but they're not certain yet. And there are 4 weeks plus left in this thing. So if anything's keeping them up, I think it's how solid their base is. And then they look at these rallies that Poilievre has, and it looks effortless for the guy. And those are powerful visuals too. We can talk about what pollsters are saying all we want, but then you look at these pictures you're seeing here, and I mean, that's thousands of people. It's hard to deny that. I was in a traffic jam. It's hard to deny the sense that, like, oh man, am I going to get to this thing on time? Because all these other people are going there too.
Yeah.
And so it's this mix of the empirical and the forecast and the projection and the visual, and it's hard this early in the campaign to come up with any kind of coherent picture.
Yeah.
Except for that picture we just saw of these big rallies.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it, and I've said this before, I just find it hard to believe that that a guy, and Pierre Poilievre, who basically doubled the Conservative membership, raised a ton of dough, mobilized kind of, or at least maybe not. Yeah, I mean, he tapped into a whole new base, really. I don't know if he needs to thank Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan and those guys for sort of creating or fostering some political interest with that kind of, and I'm not just saying that Pierre Poilievre's supporters are young males, because that would be doing a disservice to Conservative supporters and to the members of that party. There's a lot of folks in that crowd that are well past Joe Rogan's podcast listener demographic. But I just find it hard to believe that a guy that was able to create such enthusiasm around the Conservatives and absolutely dominate the polls over the past year and a half is just going to watch the whole thing slip away like sand through his fingers. I know that he's got a competent team around him that understands how to mobilize people. You see that last night at the rally in Hamilton, but they do have a short amount of time. They've got a month or even less than a month to figure out how to control they've always controlled their own messaging. And right now, I think a lot of the messaging in the general sort of the public dialogue right now is not being driven by the Conservatives. Carney's lopping off some of their messaging at the knees, right? Cutting GST off new home purchases, or making changes to carbon tax. And I know the Conservatives are pushing back on that, saying it's not real. He's not really getting rid of it. He's trying to, what are they calling him, slippery or sneaky Carney or something like that? But time's ticking. I would, in no way would I count out Pierre Poilievre at this point. No way.
No, you can't count him out. And I mean, it's like you say, things can change quickly in elections. They really can. But the one thing about the rhetoric last night and the big applause lines was Poilievre was railing against the World Economic Forum. He was calling for the defunding of the CBC and axing the tax, which is going to be a staple of this thing until the end, no matter what. And these were the kinds of things he was talking about during his leadership campaign. So the people in that room who were cheering for that, those are, I don't know how representative they are of any broader electorate, whether it's in Hamilton here or across Canada. But I think one thing is clear: Poilievre is not going to pivot. So many times, the pundits, since he won the leadership, have said, well, at some point he's going to have to pivot. He's going to have to be more centrist. He's going to have to be more moderate, at least sound a little less angry. He's going to have to sound like a prime minister, all these things. I think a lot of people think he already sounds like a prime minister because they like his style. But whether or not they like it and whether or not they want what he's selling, I think it's clear that this is the Poilievre we're going to get. He's not going to stop talking about the World Economic Forum at least once a rally.
Yeah.
He's not going to stop talking about the CBC at least once a rally because people cheer for that stuff in those rooms. And so it's this interesting thing we're doing where we're watching that and we're thinking, okay, well, what does this energy actually reflect? Does it reflect some broad movement here that the pollsters aren't catching? Or is this is a city of 700,000 people and they can find a few thousand to go to this place? It's an interesting tension. And it's one I'm really looking forward to trying to track over the next few weeks as whatever the polls do, whatever the issues do, those crowds and how they interact with that leader are just always fascinating.
Yeah, I'm always interested to watch political leaders, and for that matter, just elected representatives, look to sort of like serve their master, right? To like feed their base, water the grassroots, but at the same time understand the need to pivot and grow their party or change or adjust. I mean, I would say, like, as an example, it was interesting to watch in the Alberta NDP leadership race that Naheed Nenshi won, to watch virtually every single one of the candidates talk about getting rid of the carbon tax. It was like, because that like with like the actual hardcore like left-wing NDP base, they hate that stuff. But if you want to grow the party and be relevant and reflect what the political opinions or, how they've evolved in the country, you got to do that. Another example might be Carney and the carbon tax, or Carney and something else. Poilievre, you look at, the talk about like the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and all this kind of stuff, or, people talk, even defunding the CBC. Even that, at a time right now of people like reclaiming the Canadian flag and gathering underneath that flag and proudly protecting Canadian institutions, like at some point, I recognize, trust me, I'm a professional event host. I used to work in the National Hockey League, getting people excited on a Jumbotron. So I get pushing buttons, and I get that when you can get a response from 4,500 people talking about defunding the CBC, that every once in a while, when you feel like that rally needs a bit of a pump, you deploy that. But at some point I wonder, like, looking for like moderate, reasonable, progressive conservatives, like undecided voters or people that would love to vote conservative, but they don't want to vote for like a lunatic fringe type approach to issues management. You wonder how long he kind of sticks with that. The defunding the CBC thing in particular, to me, just seems to be like more and more of a I don't know, cutting off your nose to spite your face kind of idea, considering where Canadians are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the read I'm getting when I'm talking to elected officials and walking around talking to people at doorsteps so far. These are early days, of course, but that's the sense I'm getting too. But on the policy, this is a really interesting dynamic, I think, early in this campaign. Most of the major parties, except for the Green Party, has turned against at least the consumer carbon tax. Their housing policies don't differ all that much. They're all pitching tax cuts of one way or another, one form or another, to various definitions of the middle class. On the policy side, there's this kind of consensus on some of these major issues, even on the dental care and pharmacare programs that the Liberals brought in, and the NDP was a major part of getting to the fore. Poilievre the other day said that nobody would lose those programs if they qualify, and so that's not a wedge. The wedge issues here all seem to be personal, leadership-based, ethics-based. Both Jagmeet Singh and Pierre Poilievre going after Mark Carney's business dealings and ethics, and trying to box him into conflicts of interest, and with no success, it seems, reflected in the polls yet. But again, it's early. But that's this funny little dynamic. Like on policy, they sort of just say they're left without any huge policy differences. They're left saying, I'm the guy who can implement this. And on Donald Trump, I'm the guy who can stand up to him. But on the substance, there's less daylight than I think is typical on some of these major issues.
Nick, I know you got a role because you're covering the campaigns across the country. You and your team at Politico, we're really looking forward to hearing from you and your team at least once a week through this campaign. Let me ask you this: as a journalist, as a veteran journalist yourself, how does the shorter this is literally by the day the shortest allowable campaign, like under Canadian law, the shortest allowable. How does that impact how you cover the campaign? What sort of a different feel does it have, or how would your approach differ?
Well, we have to be so strategic. In 2015, the campaign was like 70 plus days. It started in the summer. I was at McLean's and we hosted a leaders debate. And I think it was August 6th, and that election date was in October. So for that team, it meant there was a lot more time to get to a lot more places. And in this case, it's a 5-week campaign. We only have so many resources, so many people. So we have to basically be really certain that the right places are where we're going and we're not wasting a lot of time. So I'll be in Alberta in a week and a half or thereabouts, spending some time out there because that seems like an interesting place this time. We'll talk a lot about that.
Sure is, buddy.
Sure. But that was a decision we had to make. And every time we decide to go somewhere, we're deciding not to go somewhere else. It's a really big country. And 5 weeks is not a lot of time. Like a lifetime is not a lot of time to see this country, but 5 weeks is definitely not a lot of time. So it means sort of figuring out battlegrounds, interesting candidates, interesting policy, sort of fulcrums, places like Windsor and Hamilton so far, and trying to stitch something together. And it's kind of exciting. It's like we live for this stuff, right? So I can't wait for the next thing.
All of us do. And quite frankly, to speak candidly, we're stoked here at Real Talk to be partnering with Politico through this federal election campaign. We're grateful for your availability. And honestly, Nick, I mean, I started my career in print, but I haven't been offered a column for quite some time. So I'm looking forward to contributing to your Ottawa Playbook. We put the subscribe link in our live chat, and we'll also put it in the show notes for the podcast and for YouTube. Every Thursday, my work will appear in the Ottawa Playbook at Politico.com, and every Wednesday, unless you guys are on the road, and we'll remain flexible, but every Wednesday we'll be talking to you or one of your team members covering one of the campaigns across the country. Again, we've been talking to Nick Taylor-Vaisey, who's the Ottawa Bureau Chief with Politico Canada. You can read his work and the work of his team at Politico.com. Thanks for doing this, Nick.
Thank you for the collab, Brian. Can't wait for more.
You bet, buddy. That's Nick Taylor-Vaisey checking in live from Hamilton. That Poilievre rally, people, I mean, obviously it's election time. It's no surprise. People are all fired up. But that guy does, credit where it's due, that guy does know how to work a crowd. How about that whole thing? The unelected Mark Carney, Trudeau's heir, appointed, acting like he runs the world.
I know the feeling when you get in a room with like a couple thousand people, and they're all like, you're kind of the reason that you're there, or you're the orchestrator, like when I'm DJing, and you just kind of got them on strings, and then you can kind of take them on a journey. You can say or do the stuff they're there to see.
DJs are the ultimate crowd managers. Would you agree?
But it's great when people are behind you, like that energy is behind you, and then you can play the songs they don't normally hear and take them and educate them. And that's kind of what he was doing. I watched because obviously I was trying to pull from that today, and I was listening to more of it. And he is hitting all those points he's been hitting all along, but he's starting to weave in new stuff now. And especially with that, when Carney comes out and says, hey, we're going to remove the tax on, homes, $1 million. And then he comes out and says 1.3, like he's trying to one up him now. I noticed that he's not, I didn't even know that he did. I kind of thought he might, but it looks like Pierre, or he's stressed out, is not dyeing his hair anymore. You notice there's like gray coming
Shirley
in
made
now?
that point in our live chat.
Did
you
she
see
actually?
That? Yeah.
No, I didn't see it.
Let me read it, and then you take it away.
go ahead.
Shirley says, I see that Pierre Poilievre has stopped dyeing his hair.
Yes.
He's showing the gray now that he's up against Mark Carney.
So,
image, says Shirley.
Because you've got people who are saying, Carney's got the better resume. He's the more mature guy, all this stuff. So it looks like maybe he's like letting that go, giving a little more gray to show like maybe he has a little more, I don't know what it is, like a little more maturity, a little more tenure, whatever you want to call it, but showing that, because him and Carney next to each other, it's kind of like a stark contrast. Now he's trying to maybe draw into that a bit. But yeah, there was a lot of things from that rally where I was looking at it and thinking, just like our guest said, don't get me wrong, amazing rally. There's traffic. There's thousands of people there, but at the same time, like where is the talk about what the U.S. is doing to us right now? It was kind of like at the bottom of the barrel when right now that is like top of mind.
Well,
for Canadians.
so you want to talk about
he's
crowd
avoiding
management.
it. He's avoiding it a bit.
If you're going to talk about managing a crowd and you're picking up on cues, and obviously he's got intel and he can read the room and he knows what's up. If you're talking about like the World Economic Forum, which by the way, like Stephen Harper was in the world, like I kind of roll, to be honest with you, I roll my eyes at that kind of stuff. Like I've got some buddies, like love them, known them my whole life, but they'll leave comments on my posts and things like that and be like, you're too afraid to mention that the global cabal with the Jeffrey Epstein, the World Economic Forum, and it starts to get into all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, to be quite honest with you, that's I don't think that like the average reasonable, regular, everyday Canadian is concerned about that type of thing. But when you're going to the well and you're getting huge cheers for like, taking shots at like the global elites and Mark Carney and all this kind of stuff. And then you start talking about defunding the CBC and you're probably not going to attack Trump with your next move.
Yeah.
Because the people have already spoken. The people have told you that, you know what I'm saying? Like I would be curious to see in that room actually if he was to say, and how about that, that big orange buffoon threatening Canada's sovereignty?
No,
You'd probably have some murmuring. The crowd wouldn't know what to do.
I'm not saying that. Carney's not saying that at his rallies either. But I mean, this should be addressed for more than 5% of these rallies that are going out. This is top of mind for Canadians. And if this election is as close as polls say, and who knows, like look at the polls from the U.S. election last year, just recently, they were way off. But let's say the polls are right, and this is neck and neck, and this could be decided by a few percent. And Poilievre loses this election after, just like you said, rallying his base, getting all this momentum. Carney steps up, says a few things, stays calm. Yeah, he has one thing with a reporter, whatever. Let's say he gets into office. And Poilievre looks back and thinks, what could I have done better? Well, if Carney gets elected, it's because he is going up against Trump more than Poilievre is. That's just my consideration, because every time I hear a clip, whether it's on a conservative show or a left-leaning show, it's always a clip. Carney's always mentioning what's going on with the states.
Yeah.
Poilievre's always mentioning Carney in his clips. That's all I hear, right? So that's just me.
That's a good point.
An average guy listening to what I hear on the radio and TV every day is,
you know what, Johnny?
When Poilievre comes on, he mentions Carney. When Carney comes on, he mentions Trump.
Guess who campaigns need to reach? Average guys and gals.
Little Johnny like me?
That's the whole point. Little Johns and Jills, just like you. Tracy in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Get exclusive savings on internet, electricity, and natural gas by visiting parkpower.ca/realtalk. Tracy says, so what you're saying is this election actually is going to be about hair, just like it would have been with Justin Trudeau.
And I saw someone else say,
can you imagine if we talked about female candidates the same way we talked about male candidates?
Well, I
guess people did with Lisa LaFlamme, the news anchor. She's letting her gray go. You go, girl.
Well, I wouldn't shame anyone. We're talking about image here, and image is everything, whether you like it or not. Especially nowadays, maybe back in the day when social media, and I wouldn't even say TV now, but I just say when you open your phone, boom, you see a picture of the candidate. You see a video clip of the candidate. You open your Instagram, you see a short of them talking to a crowd. Image is everything, whether you like it or not. When somebody sees someone and their image, if Poilievre came out with a beard tomorrow, you think nobody would mention that he grew a beard like in the last week or whatever? Of course we're talking about image, and it affects how you vote, whether you like it or not. Is it the deciding factor? No, but it's definitely in there.
I'm trying to picture Pierre Poilievre with a beard. I think he could pull it off.
Well, we were talking
He
about
could pull it off. Because Carney's the banker. He can't. Carney's got to keep the sideburns like straight level and be clean shaven. Jugmeat's got his whole thing going on, obviously. I wonder, Poilievre with like the big kind of, you know what I'm talking about, the big lumberjack beard.
No, I'm talking about, I think his would be very manicured and like maybe even dyed to keep that, keep that gray out. But anyways, this is ridiculous what we're talking about right now. But what I'm saying is like changes in appearance.
This is how real people talk, though.
That's something I noticed. Pierre went from glasses and slick black hair to no glasses and looks like, I'm just going to say it right now, he's been working out. His stature looks better over the last year and a half.
I bet he works out.
He's been improving his image to look younger. And now he's like letting his gray hair out. That's definitely something he thought about. It's not like something he woke up one day and just forgot to dye his hair or forgot that he, or flip side is maybe there's just some stress coming. Remember when Obama went from like dark hair to gray in literally like a year? Yeah.
Well, every American president does. It's you can like watch them age.
Could be stress
in real time.
Could be all that's going on.
No kidding. We'll get to more of your comments here. Mark says, personally, I'm already tired of this election. Why? He says, because Pierre's already been campaigning for so long. I'm grateful that it's a short campaign. Maybe. I mean, isn't it interesting? You've got a guy that Poilievre, and no wonder, has been campaigning essentially since he became conservative leader. It's been a couple of years. And then you've also got Carney, who, like, I don't know. Tell us something about Mark Carney. Like most people, stop most people on the street, say, tell me two things about Mark Carney.
He's from Edmonton.
Well, yeah, nobody in Ontario knows that.
He went to Harvard.
Maybe the Edmonton Oilers skate sort of did something. Interesting, by the way, as this has developed, we've realized obviously Carney's not running in Edmonton. That would have been kind of an interesting one. Would have put Alberta more in the spotlight this campaign. But still, we'll be covering the stories across the country and obviously from our home city and our home province of Alberta as they develop over the course of the campaign. And we welcome your feedback to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We're going to get to an email in just a bit. But first, before we do, our friends at Tourism Jasper give us an opportunity to showcase some of the incredible things happening in this crown jewel of the Canadian Rockies. It's My Jasper Memories, proudly presented by Tourism Jasper, and I want to right now, in a good way, I am sounding the alarm for every skier and snowboarder out there. I don't care what level you're at, whether you're a beginner all the way up to a tried, tested, and true expert seeking the double blacks, whatever it is. Marmot Basin has been absolutely dumped on. The snow that they've seen over the past couple of weeks has been nothing short of remarkable. Spring skiing is officially here. John, I just checked out skimarmot.com, and I can report as of the time that we're speaking, they had 6 centimeters of fresh snow overnight. They've got more to come in the forecast, and it's -3 right now. -3. You know what I think of -3? I'm thinking that there's going to be folks out there that are skiing without jackets on. There's going to be people that are taking some time at the Mid-Mountain Lodge, or their après ski is going to involve sitting on the patio, my friends. It is, in my mind, the best time of year to be riding, and that's not even mentioning all the powder that you're going to be crushing. They've got, honestly, like, I bet they've had almost a meter. This is my exaggeration, and my, this is not on behalf of Marmot Basin, but honestly, I was looking last week and it's like 20 centimeters overnight, 12 centimeters overnight, 10 centimeters, like just unbelievable. Plus they've got that new knob quad chair. They've got blue runs all the way through to the advanced options, so the whole family can enjoy that new ride. It's all waiting for you at Marmot Basin. You can learn more about the mountain. Plan your visit by checking out skimarmot.com. Jasper's also getting ready to roll out the only gay ski week in the Rockies. And of course, Jasper Pride, I know, is a tradition for so many of you. A big part of the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival is the big party that goes on at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. This is the Phoenix Rising Party. It's coming up on Saturday, April 12th. From 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. Why put 2 on there? Just say it's from 8 p.m. till whenever. Because it's Jasper Pride. Nobody's shutting it down at 2.
Like the lights and power just... That's not what happened.
If you've ever been out to the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival, you know that this is an around-the-clock celebration and obviously welcome to folks of all ages. You can learn more by checking out jasper.pride, and we'll put that in the show notes. I'll show it to you on the screen right now, as a matter of fact, because they've got some cool things going on for folks of all ages, including like parties for like teenagers. They've got some karaoke stuff going on. It all starts April 4th and runs through the 13th. And you can check out the itinerary online. Find your accommodation for Jasper Pride. Options to move and groove. They've got the Taste the Rainbow promotions. Of course, the culinary angles on all of this. The events link at jasperpride.ca is where you want to go, whether you're looking for vibrant nightlife or family-friendly fun. They've got something for absolutely everybody. And by the way, while we're talking about the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge, I did also want to mention all the way up till the end of this month, you're running out of time, everybody. You're running out of time. But till the end of this month, they're booking right now their signature cabins for 50% off. This is an opportunity to check out some of the most stunning cabins you'll ever see in your life at a rate that everybody can agree on. Plus, they've got their whiskey weekend, the Beast Whiskey Weekend, coming up. All of this at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. There's always memories to be made in the beautiful town of Jasper and Jasper National Park. You can find inspiration for your next visit and discover Jasper by visiting jasper.travel. Follow the show notes for specific links to the events that we've talked about. My Jasper Memories is proudly presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. How about this from Jillian, who's checking in on our live chat? Says, aloha. She says she's in Hawaii. She's tuning in from Hawaii. How good is this? She says, wait, what time is it? Did I miss the entire show? Oh, she's joining us near the end. Jillian, the fact that you're here for even 5 minutes during your Hawaiian vacation is fantastic to see. David's going to be celebrating Pride Night with the Oilers tonight. Very cool. Says he's stoked to be going to the game tonight with his older brother. They've got tickets as well. How cool is that? Yeah. Oh man, getting down to the end of the National Hockey League season.
I was just
and
talking
Alex
with
Ovechkin. Another one last night.
Do I call him Mr. Mayor? I was so awkward this morning. I was
Amarjeet,
I just said sir, but like obviously I see the mayor or the former mayor or whatever he was. I see Amarjeet Sohi at the playoffs every year because he comes up on the balcony in the moss pit. And, I was mentioning to him on the way out, I'm like, will I see you up on the balcony this year? Like, is that a thing that only the current mayor does? Or, hey, if he's successful here, good luck to him. Maybe he'll be up there anyways, What
did you make of of his interview? I'm like, he's got his supporters, so he does. Everybody was talking about, will he run to be mayor again? Will he run again as mayor? And if he would, would it be an easy win? Probably not. Would Tim Cartmel beat him? Maybe. Now he's stated that he won't run, no matter what happens with the federal election, which is opening the door, like you talked about, for he's still a counselor now, but he announced he wouldn't seek re-election. Andrew Knack said he's not running again as counselor. As he's sitting in this chair, the whole time I'm just saying to him, so you're running for Nenchi's NDP, so you're running for Nenchi's NDP. Now everyone's going, well, Knack's probably going to run for mayor now.
For sure.
So that's kind of an interesting one. But in particular, if he's running for a federal seat, and at the end of April, we know whether or not he's got it, and the election, I'm pretty sure it's October 28. I can double check that, fact check that. But, that's another 6 months. So you've got kind of an interim mayor that council would decide on for like a half a year, which is relatively significant. And if he runs and loses and then he comes back and then he's the mayor again, but then everybody knows he's not running again. Like, it's just kind of interesting.
He's in a complicated
I've seen a lot of people,
right
and this is just anecdotal. This is just my social media. This is just these are people I know. This is not, but this is what I'm seeing. Real Talkers, maybe you're seeing it if you live in and around the Metro Edmonton region or anywhere in Alberta. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, like, he should resign. Like, this is political opportunism at its worst. This is the second time he's taken leave from a municipal role to seek a federal job. I don't know. I guess I can kind of understand where people are coming from. Like, if you were elected mayor by the people of Edmonton to do something for Edmonton, And when you're running for the federal seat, and he sits in this seat and tells us why he wants to run, and he believes it's a critical time for Canada. It is, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And he thinks it's a big time for Edmonton. It is, obviously. I mean, like nothing he's saying is wrong. But I wonder, it'd be interesting to see, like, to follow him around for a couple of hours at the doors and see what people are saying to him, and whether or not people support, like, hey, yeah, you're our mayor. You take our best interest to Ottawa and you fight for us and advocate for us. Like, he sure took the opportunity here on the show to talk about that, right? Like, he took some shared credit for Rogers Place. Interesting. He took a lot of credit for a lot of the housing stuff
when
that's
something
happening.
they're involved.
Well, yeah, but he was not the mayor, right? He wasn't the mayor. He wasn't the mayor when it was conceptualized and planned. He wasn't the mayor when it was built. He wasn't the mayor when it was opened. He was a federal cabinet minister for sure. But like, anyway, whatever. I don't want to pile on that. I kind of wisecracked a little bit when he was here. That's fine. He's on the record. The point I'm saying,
well, you got to push back.
He comes on the show. He comes on the show, and he wants to say, like, here's what I did for Edmonton, right? He's talking, his key role in the TMX expansion. I was surprised he didn't want to talk more about that in the interview. Real Talkers, what do you think? I asked him, why do you think the Liberals don't get credit for saving TMX, for essentially funding TMX? And he basically says he gets lost in a bunch of other things, and then moved on. I thought he might want to kind of sink into that and talk about that a little bit more. But he was very intent in our interview in this episode and talking about what he was able to deliver to Edmonton. And I understand why. So his supporters will say, well, go to Ottawa and advocate for Edmonton. But his detractors, or people that are critical of his move right now, are saying, you're already in a role to advocate for Edmonton. You already ran for a job, and we gave you that job, and now you want to leave that job to get a better job for yourself. I'd be curious to see, like how many.
a lot of things here.
I'm not asking you anything.
Okay.
I'm providing some background. I said it would be interesting to follow him around for a couple of hours at the doors and see what people are saying. Like, are people supportive of this? Go to Edmonton and advocate for us, or are people grinding his gears? Like, either you need to resign, or what you're doing is political opportunism.
But what happens if a mayor resigns? Is the city just in flux until the election?
Council would, I don't know. What are the
Because I would not want that. I would rather he not resign until someone else is elected.
Yeah. And you also understand and recognize that some folks, like, when they're, if you can't stand a politician, like, for some of you that's Justin Trudeau, for some of you that's Pierre Poilievre.
I think for everyone,
for some of you
someone.
it's Danielle Smith. Everybody's kind of got the one.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. For some of you it's Donald Trump. For some of you it's Kamala Harris. For some of you it's Barack Obama. Whatever, whoever that politician is. For some folks, regardless of what they decide, or regardless of their policy, or regardless of what they deliver or don't deliver, you can't stand it.
Sure,
because you can't stand them.
Yeah, I also think, like. And, agree with Sohi, don't agree with Sohi. Was he a good mayor? Was he a bad mayor? Being a mayor is so hard. And I understand, like, there's the prime minister and premiers, and those are hard jobs too. But when you're a mayor, you're at the ground floor of a city, especially in a major city. Like, it sucks. You're dealing with all the stuff that is right at people's doorsteps. The potholes, like he was talking about, transit, homelessness, the opioid crisis, like all these things. And then COVID too, like, that totally blew those things out of proportion. We're still not even out of the repercussions from COVID right now. But at the same time, like, I'm downtown every day. You're downtown every day. I am also, like, I think I have a unique perspective because, like, I'll be downtown all week, but then I'll drive out to, like, Vegreville and do a wedding on the weekend. Yeah. And, I live on the south side, but then I'll drive north side because, my partner works past there. So, like, I feel like I have a good perspective of the city. And, there were some times there when you were pushing them, like, on the transit and whether Edmonton is safer. And, I don't know the exact numbers. He said it's safest it's been in a decade. I feel like people are feeling less safe, but I also feel like there's a ton of factors here that people aren't thinking about. Like, number one, they want Edmonton to be this big competing city with, like, Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal and all these other places. But we're starting to get a taste of that, Ryan. We're having all these people come here now. And the after effect of having your population increase is you're going to see more of those things. You're going to have homelessness, houselessness, drug addiction, packed buses and trains because there's more people. And you're going to start to see that stuff. And as people are saying, like, there were people in the chat today who were like, can't walk out my door without seeing someone on fentanyl. Well, I don't know where you live. If you're downtown, I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, you and me, we see people who are dealing with houselessness all around us as we're downtown. But and again, white male walking down the street, not a woman, not a person of color, not a someone who's young, who might
You're
feel.
speaking from your own perspective.
I don't feel unsafe downtown, and I think it has gotten slightly better in the last 2 years. Do I think it's perfect? No. I did take transit for 5 to 6 months as well. You know that 6:37 in the morning and home every day at 4 p.m. for about 5 to 6 months. Back and forth downtown. I never once saw a fight. I never once saw a stabbing. Occasionally you'd hear someone saying some loud stuff.
Sure.
Like maybe they're intoxicated.
Real life.
There were a few times people asleep on the train. Next stop, like EMS or EPS would come in and say, do you have a ticket? And I told you about that one time when they came in and were basically like, hey, get off. You don't have shoes on and you're asleep. We're going to get you some shoes. But hey, this is a one little tunnel vision window of whatever. So when people say, I can't even get on a bus, well, I don't know when they're taking the bus. Maybe it's late at night. But every major city, Toronto, Vancouver, you get on the bus after 10 p.m., it's not going to be the safest. I mean, but, obviously we still have problems in the city. So I'll revert back to you and say, I think resigning and leaving that seat kind of vacant right now is not the best thing I would like to see, but I don't know how it works. Does the council just take over?
So a couple quick things. Number one, the municipal election across Alberta is scheduled for the 20th of October.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the 20th of October. In Canada, when a mayor submits a written resignation to the municipal clerk, it becomes effective either immediately or at a specified future date, and then at the next council meeting, which has already happened, the municipal council officially declares the mayor's seat vacant. Then they have a couple of options. Number one, a by-election. Most commonly, a by-election held to replace the new mayor or to elect a new mayor. There's deadlines by which they must be called typically within 60 days of the vacancy being declared, or if the vacancy occurs close to the next regular election, the council may choose to appoint someone, often a councillor, to serve as mayor for the remainder of the term. Right now, that's Karen Principe, but she's not the mayor of Edmonton. She's the deputy mayor, so she'll be acting right now. And until a new mayor is elected or appointed, a deputy mayor, which is Karen Principe in Edmonton as we speak, or another member of council may serve as the acting mayor to perform necessary duties. So that's the deal. Jill says Johnny's 100% right. Big cities come with big problems.
That's all
Montreal's
I'm saying,
got gang and organized crime shootings. London had a Putin opponent poisoned with radioactive polonium downtown. Ms. KD says, Sohi is speaking from data when he says that it's safer. Ken says that Glasses Johnny is back, says that you are appearing or coming across as much more credible and is wondering if you are considering running for mayor.
When I have glasses on, I'm trying to protect my vision from these
Screens.
they're like blue
You're
light
surrounded by
blockers.
screens.
But I also got some sleep last night and did have a coffee because I knew, Amarjeet was coming in today. So maybe I am a little more clear. But I think, again, I'm not some worldly guy, but I do have a unique perspective because I have lived in Toronto. I have lived in Vancouver. Now I live in Edmonton. And I compare all three cities, and I know they've changed in the last 20 years, all of them. But I visit back to them both. My family's in Toronto. My sister's in, Whistler, Squamish area, so I go to Vancouver. Big city problems are the same everywhere. Houselessness, potholes, drug addiction, high housing costs. You could put these on any one of those cities. And when people all I hear about Edmonton when I talk to people is, oh man, I can't wait till we're like the big city guys too. Cause I think we're a great city, right? I think we're better than Calgary. I'll say that right now, even though Calgary's a beautiful city as well. But they want all these big city amenities. They want to be, the big city, but they don't understand that as you build, as more people come here, we just had a taste of it, Ryan. All these people coming to Edmonton, you're going to get all these things, right? And they're always going to be around. That doesn't mean don't fight them, look the other way. It just means it just comes with the territory. And I think every mayor in every city, is there any mayor you can think of that people were like, oh, we loved him or we loved her?
It depends who you're talking to.
They always get the most flack
that's why I was
they're
curious,
right at the ground floor.
That's why I was curious to ask Sohi about the legacy question, right? Because it's Like, that's always interesting to ask a politician, what do you figure your legacy is? And I mean, depending on the politician, they may be able to quickly point to something, whether that was their top priority or not, or in some circumstances that may be too early to say. For a lot of politicians, you may say, well, we've done what we can to pave the way for a healthy downtown for the next generation. And then 20 years later, you go, gosh, they put in the building blocks and made it happen. So the legacy question is an interesting one. But yeah, his was, I mean, I thought that the idea of like getting contracts back on track and that type of thing. I mean, a big reason why property taxes have risen so significantly in Edmonton is because they had big collective bargaining agreements that they had to reach, and they've got more coming. And for a lot of people, I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Collective bargaining kind of works that way. It depends on who you talk to, whether or not folks would feel that was something that the council could crow about. And obviously, I saw some pushback in our live chat. I love you guys. I know that sometimes when I'm just like in an interview, I can't get to all the comments I want to, but I saw when he talked about or acknowledged the rise in property taxes, I saw a big response there because a lot of you are feeling that. Man, I just got my new car insurance or renewal notice, by the way, in the mail yesterday. Yeah. Wow. Now, I told you guys I had a tough year. My own fault, self-inflicted. Like, we're not even going to get into the details because I had a stack. I had a tough year. They were out for me. It was the World Economic Forum, and it's
a witch hunt.
And it was Klaus Schwab, and it was the
happened right after we had Trudeau in here.
It was the carbon tax, and the fuel tax. Anyway, my car insurance is like double.
Insane, right?
Mine. So
my literal company is leaving Alberta because they're not making enough money. So I'm scared to death. I think it's September. I have to go to a new insurer, and it's going to be ridiculous.
Scott's referencing this story. Didn't Sohi get his brother a huge contract with insider knowledge on the bid? Quite a legacy, that from Scott. That's kind of an interesting story. By the way, I'm not going to carry water in that, and I'm probably not even going to wade into that because that's actually before the courts. As you know, Amarjeet's suing a couple of the guys that had put that kind of report out. But wasn't it like it was like a trucking contract for his brother? It was like a $50,000, like I don't know. Anyway, I'm not carrying water for Sohi, but I don't know that there's like some huge global conspiracy there. You can Google it if you want. The guys who put out the YouTube video on it are now being sued, so take that for what it's worth. Before we get to an email, and I do want to get to this email from Janelle, who just like lays it out, and it's a good one in the context of what we've been talking about, including our musings yesterday on whether or not another Liberal government would lead to an increased call for Alberta to separate. I do want to let you know, first of all, a few things that are happening with some great friends of ours, including the team over at Edmonton Opera. They have just rolled out their 2024-25 season, and this is one you are not going to want to miss. This season at Edmonton Opera, and you can read all about it at edmontonopera.com, is all about, hey, John, we were just talking about it, legacy. That's right. They're celebrating legacy in 2025-26 at Edmonton Opera. You can find all the details on their website. It opens with Bravi, which is opera's greatest hits, a grand celebration of opera's most powerful and timeless music in partnership with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. This goes at the Winspear Center October 9th and 11th. You can already get your tickets. And then in February, early next year, audiences will witness the world premiere of Indians on Vacation, a poignant and comedic new opera based on Thomas King's novel of the same name. This goes February 5th, 6th, and 7th at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium and will be certain to sell out. The season will conclude with the third chapter of Wagner's legendary Ring cycle, Siegfried, Fate Forged in Fire. We learn this by following Siegfried as he discovers his true heritage. An epic tale of heroism and fate will be performed at the McLab Theatre at the Citadel. I love that venue. May 25th, 27th, 29th, and 31st of next year. I know it feels like a ways away, but these tickets will be snapped up, and you do not want to miss it. The Edmonton Opera 2025-26 season, available for your review and ticket purchase today at edmontonopera.com. I've also got April 12th circled on my calendar, and I'm inviting you to join me. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful gathering as the team at Innovative Canadians for Change presents their 6th annual I See Change Gala. The theme here, clear waters and clear futures. Innovative Canadians for Change is a not-for-profit organization based in Alberta's capital city. Established 15 years ago, they are committed to tackling systemic global issues through innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. This is really, really incredible and life-changing work that they're doing. You can learn more about it on their website. This is a clean water initiative in particular that we'll be celebrating that's provided safe drinking water to more than 140,000 people living in East African nations. Every point of use filter provided through your support at this gala can provide a family of 5 with safe water for 3 years. How amazing is that? IC Change is also establishing solar-powered oxygen delivery systems to supply medical-grade oxygen to hospitals in low-resource areas in Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, and Somalia. The work that they're doing is really, really remarkable, and that's why I encourage you to support this event along with us. We're proud to be there on behalf of Real Talk. You can learn more by checking out IC Change. That's the letter I, the letter C, change, ichange.ca/2025 Gala. We'll put that in the show notes for your review. The team at Complete Care Restoration, more than a quarter century of experience restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. If your spring takes an unexpected twist, and I sure hope it doesn't, friends, but if there's a sewer backup or a burst pipe or you find black mold or asbestos, don't go it alone and don't let it get worse. Contact the team at Complete Care Restoration today. They've got emergency services available across Alberta and beyond. They'll work directly with your insurance company so you don't have to. Again, that's CompleteCareRestoration.ca. And at UCAN Youth Services, they're literally every single day changing lives. You know, you can say that kind of thing about an organization, but the work that the team at UCAN is doing is providing proof of performance, including dropping crime rates, serious crime rates in the city of Edmonton involving young people. Kind of a weird conversation to have, kind of a tough reality that 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds are regularly interacting with the Edmonton Police Service, not in a good way. The relentless outreach program, these workers stop at nothing to reach out to those youth and empower them to make positive, healthy, and life-changing decisions. Sometimes it's a roof over their head. Sometimes it's food security. Sometimes it's just getting them back into a learning environment where they can connect with people that will be a positive influence in their life. This all happens as a partnership with United Way, the Government of Alberta, the Edmonton Police Service, and Reach Edmonton. And they're always looking for support from private donors as well. If you're feeling compelled, maybe something in your personal life is causing this to resonate with you, you can learn more and indicate your support. Sign up as a donor or a partner at ucan.ca. See a lot of people here. Denise says, yeah, clean water, Jasper. You're talking about clean water internationally. What about the eastern slopes? What about coal mining? It just goes to reiterate, doesn't it, that no matter what we talk about on the show, no matter how long the episodes are, no matter how many guests we have or what we do, there's always something else happening. And that's why we're so grateful to have an audience that subscribes to our content and that checks in every single day and that also is in touch with us to let us know what's on your mind, how you feel about what you're hearing on the show, and sometimes what you're not seeing on the show. That's exactly what Janelle did in this email. She sent us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com, received it around supper time last night. She said, hey, listen, I'm listening to your March 25th episode on the show. That was Tuesday, and this whole thing about Alberta separating. She said, I'm a Gen Xer, born and raised in rural Alberta. As a matter of fact, she says raised in Alberta, but born in Calgary, now living in Edmonton Center, where I've been for about a decade. I used to always vote Conservative, says Janelle, because that's what my parents taught me. I even voted Conservative in the election that Rachel Notley won, so she voted for Jim Prentice, essentially, and the first Trudeau election, she voted for Stephen Harper. Says, my parents are definitely hard right-wingers. We all enjoyed our Ralph Bucks, but I never realized how hard right my family was until I got a job in the Alberta Public Service just before Rachel Notley got elected. I'd never worked in the public sector before until I started this new job. I was a banker for the longest time. But after working those first 5 years in the Alberta Public Service, in particular under Rachel Notley, I really didn't notice much of a difference in Alberta when it was happening, other than noticing some things that were quite frankly, finally getting done. That had been a lot of failed talks up until then. She says, I don't like a pipeline. She says, but still, I wasn't really noticing a huge difference. I was busy working on like government things, thinking this is just kind of how things work. It's kind of cool to see it from the inside, to be honest. Although sometimes frustrating too, with all the red tape, all the taxpayer dollar waste that you can see on the regular, on the inside, that the average taxpayer wouldn't even notice. She says that until Jason Kenney came in, dragging the Wild Rose libertarian stuff with him into this party just to get Rachel Notley out. Jason Kenney, of course, uniting the Conservatives. Janelle says, heaven forbid, after 45 years of the same old Conservative government, we would dare to have any change, 2 terms with Rachel Notley, but I digress. Janelle says, let me tell you, Real Talkers, it was and it still is night and day as an Alberta public service employee. Seeing what it's like on the inside of government as an employee from the NDP now to the UCP. She says, and this is what's changed my perspective on how I'll now vote. Janelle says, I went from being meh, whatever, kind of loosely paying attention, always voting Conservative so that we in Alberta always have as much of a representation federally as possible, but also voting Conservative politically as well, because Conservatives claim to always be more fiscally responsible. She says, I can now tell you on the record, I will likely never vote Conservative again. Not unless an actual progressive Conservative Party is created. She has that in all caps. The way that Pierre Poilievre is currently running his messaging, kind of a Timbit Trump type approach with his anti-woke comments on business, it's a hard no for me. This is the opposite of progressive, and this sort of anti-woke talk, I just don't think there's anything wrong with change. I don't think there's anything wrong with accepting people for who they are. And anybody who thinks being called woke is an insult is probably a straight up MAGA cultist. Being awake to social justice is not a bad thing. Caring about your fellow humans, no matter what vulnerable differences we have, not a bad thing. Janelle says, so here's my deal on Mark Carney. Aside from his economic background, he's not dismissive of oil and gas. And she says, I'm not saying that the Trudeau Liberals fully dismissed it, but when comparing the two, they sure look like they did. Like it or not, says Janelle, oil and gas is here to stay for another couple generations at best, so let's capitalize on it safely. But Alberta needs to stop pretending like it's the crown jewel of the country. The fact of the matter is that while Alberta's pretty great for a million different reasons, the world evolves and has been since the end of time. I prefer politicians who stay closer to the center. I'm okay with them leaning a little right on issues like spending and a little left on issues like social programs, but the minute a political party openly campaigns against trans people or immigrants or has plans to cut social programs for our most vulnerable, well, I just can't get on side. Janelle says, in the end, our society is only as good as our most vulnerable. And if we continue to isolate our most vulnerable and cut social programs, this issue will never get resolved. Healthcare, infrastructure, social services, life-saving services, helping the environment. It's beyond me how many people are on side with cutting spending in these areas. And as far as the Alberta separation talk goes, why is this Sovereignty Act stuff not been put to a referendum? The Premier just bulldozes ahead as if she knows for sure that the majority of Albertans want that. Why? Because she'd lose. I mean, Jespo here for a quick second. Keep in mind, they can throw it on the ballot in municipal election in October and save like tens of millions of dollars if they're actually serious about that. Back to Janelle's email. She says there's no way the majority of Albertans want to separate. Those that do just happen to be a lot louder than the rest of us. But even my hardcore right-wing parents want to stay. So take that for whatever it's worth. Any Canadian dying to be American is more than welcome to go ahead and do that. She says, the moral of the story for this middle-aged Alberta provincial government employee is that I've seen some things. I've seen a lot of things. And I can safely say that this next election, there's zero chance I'm going to vote Conservative. I've had my issues with Trudeau, and it was time for him to go. But for any Albertan to say that the Liberal Party is the same as the Trudeau Liberals today, as of then, well, what about your Conservative parties of Alberta? She says, I'll admit I definitely get caught up in some of the vile stuff that Alberta's Premier is saying that Pierre Poilievre is doing, and your show is always talking me back from the ledge with logic and reason. She says, I don't always agree with you, Jespo, but I would say I do the majority of the time, so there you go. Thanks for an excellent balance, a good range of guests from all different walks of life. This is the stuff more people need to embrace so that we can all have nice things again.
Nice
That's from
things.
Janelle. How about that?
Yeah, I tend to be like Janelle and agree with you a lot too, but I try to build a wall.
I would prefer that you
sometimes.
find a way to disagree with me.
All
a
right, here
little
we
bit
go,
more.
Ryan. To the vulnerable.
Let me know
Get
where I'm
the
an
hell out
absolute
of
idiot. You know what
that,
I'm saying?
That point she was making was great, though. And I've always felt that way. And I think people in the chat and who watch will be like, oh, Johnny's a leftist, whatever. It's no secret I lean left, but I hate that people think it's woke or left-leaning policy to help the vulnerable in our society. All the studies show that if you help people who are experiencing houselessness, who are experiencing addiction, who are in debt, who are the most vulnerable of the society, if you prop them up, if you help them, everyone else's life improves. If you don't, if you cut funding from that, people get desperate, and that's when they turn to crime more. And that's when your life, your cushy life in your house on the good part of town with the lawns mowed perfectly, that's when it starts intersecting your area. And that's when you start saying things like, we're not safe. Why are we not safe? Because people are hurting. And we need to help those people first and foremost. Everyone else's life gets better then.
Denise says, great email. 80s Fanify. Thank you, Janelle. James, fantastic email, Janelle. Wise Kyle, this person was never a conservative.
Why do people always think it's impossible
It's
for
the
people
purity
to
test.
have a change of opinion?
It's the purity test.
Yeah.
And every party does it. You know, every party does it. It's hilarious. But I appreciate Janelle. I mean, it always, to me, it gives a little bit of a depth and context to an email. You don't have to do this, but it gives context when people tell us how they voted in past elections. I always like knowing that about somebody. Like, it gives you a sense of like, okay, where was your head at this period of time? And like, how did your vote change 2 or 4 years later? And what happened between that period of time and what influenced you? Where did you live in Canada? What were you doing for a job at the time? Right? Because it just goes to show like what informs and influences people's votes. I see podcaster Troy Pavlik in the chat as well, watching us live on YouTube. What's up, Troy? Thanks for that. He says, keep in mind, though, referenda don't get correct results, though, as well. Remember when we had a referendum and then incorrectly decided to keep changing the clocks? He's not wrong. I was talking to somebody the other day about getting rid of daylight savings.
I hate all of it, too. I honestly, the switching forward, back.
Most people, and I'm talking about
it's a farmer thing,
smart
right?
people. No, you can get some of the smartest people around you in a room.
Lots of people don't
and get them to start talking about daylight savings, and you realize like everyone's like doing the Michael Jordan tongue thing, like with their brains are working, trying to figure out like what. Like, wait a second, so would it be darker in the summer, and it would be nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Back in the day, they just knew. They just, hey,
Saskatchewan knows what it wants.
It's going to get darker as it gets colder.
I like
earlier.
that Saskatchewan's just like, we're going to do our thing. All right? We're going to do our thing, and
we're going to live our lives easily.
We don't care if we're off or on. You know, it's like this is the same thing as, you know, it's like, what's that joke? And is it Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? You're going the wrong way. It's like, how do you know where we're going? It's like Saskatchewan, like, you're on the wrong time for half the year. Well, how do you know you're on the wrong time for half the year? Ryu Street Fighter, watching us on YouTube on the live chat, powered by Park Power, says Albertans are furious with the Liberals, but they don't want to separate. The Alberta separatism talk. Okay, Ryu, give me a fucking break. The Alberta separatism talk is liberal fear-mongering. It's not real. Quebec wants to separate, but Alberta is the target, buddy. Let me just say this. The only thing prompting our conversation on Alberta separating, and Alberta's not separating. And this is not going to be a recurring theme
the chat is out
through our
there.
federal election. The chat is out there. And I notice that, like, when I post, I mean, some of the comments we get, when I post, you know, something about that's relatively benign. Hey, I talked to Ian Hannamansing about a view from Alberta, and then some of the comments you get are like, you know,
insane.
I mean, some of them, you know, not safe for even this show. But there's a lot of talk about, we saw it, I think it was, who was it, Kenzie yesterday put it in. They said if Carney's in, Alberta's out. There's a lot of people that's kind of how they're feeling right now. Now, I don't think that's a serious thing, but also at the same time, I don't think that that's something you ignore.
No,
I'm happy to talk about it.
Whether real or implied, and I know you have them and I do too. I have friends who comment on our show's stuff or on just random stuff I see, or even put posts right to their Facebook or whatever that are alluding this, like you know, separatist talk. And whether it's real or implied or a joke, it's out there,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be, because it's ridiculous, but it is. We can't ignore it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Do you want to, I don't know if we're leaving, but do you want to hit that Rogan clip before we go?
Did you want?
Speaking of ridiculous.
I love when you do this at the end of the. You guys, here's what Johnny does at the end of the show. He kind of like because we've got all these elements and we make judgment calls as we're doing the show. Are we going to actually use this?
You don't have
Are
to
we going to actually go there? I think it was interesting. So I mean, yes, let's use it.
If we miss it today, it's going to be yesterday's news.
We pulled this Rogan clip. Now, to be clear, I don't think he's serious, but he is undoubtedly the biggest podcaster in the world. He's got the biggest podcast on planet Earth by a mile. And here's what Joe Rogan had to say, talking about the UFC and maybe him coming to Canada.
Where's that at? I don't know. See if Jamie could find it. Fucking unbelievable, man. I'm super impressed.
Montreal, UFC 315, May 10th.
Wow. I won't be there. I don't go to Canada anymore. I don't. No, nor should you. No, discipline. Yeah, I'd rather go to Russia. Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
When they become the U.S., you never know.
That's never going to happen. That's so crazy to ask them to be the 51st state. I had a conversation with Trump about it. He goes, I started calling him Governor Trudeau just for fun, and a lot of people were saying it's a good idea. Like, maybe it is a good idea. A lot of people say it. Look at this fucking squeeze, man.
Anyways, I don't know.
He's obviously, I mean, he's clowning around.
He is, but it's amazing to see. And again, I'm someone, man, I can remember me and my wife right now going to Joe Rogan live comedy here in Edmonton, man, back in the day when I thought he was funny, edgy, didn't agree with everything he said, but, listen to the podcast all the time. It's crazy to see, like, the richer you get, and I'm not saying this about everyone, but, like, when we're talking about him and Elon and all these, and, Amazon guy, the richer you get, and the more you isolate, like you move to Texas, you have a little bunker now, you don't really go to the more you isolate yourself with your money, people just start to go a little wacky, do they not? Like Bezos doesn't want to go anywhere either unless it's to
I would love to know.
Like Rogan is like, I won't go to Montreal. Montreal is one of the most amazing places on the planet.
I think he's pushing buttons and he's joking, but it's interesting. Like you see the numbers. Did they say year over year in the month of February, 500,000 fewer Canadians crossed the border into the United States just for the month of February. And I've seen some people, there's some American coverage of, in particular tourism operators close to the border on the American side. They're saying it's really hurting them, obviously, like the bed and breakfasts and just wait for the golf courses and things like that.
But I don't think he's talking about tariffs. I think he's talking about like communist Canada is what he's doing, because this is the tone that he has now ever since
I don't know.
Trudeau.
I don't know. I mean, I don't, it probably has something to do with Canadians booing the American anthem. It probably has something to do with kind of this. I mean, it's just a weird. Like we've all had this, like with your guys, like or your girlfriends, or like whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, like two longtime friends are actually kind of quarreling, and it just throws the whole thing off kilter because you're so used to them all getting along, and that's kind of what's happening right now is that people are like all of a sudden Canadians are starting to like we're booing the American anthem. Like what? I'm gonna boo the American anthem. And then Americans are sort of acting, speaking down and denigrating Canada. We could take you over in a second.
It's crazy on social media.
If this was a military offensive, we'd level you in 3 hours. We don't need you. And it's kind of like, what is happening?
It's like, dude, like a second ago we were buddies. And now it's like, we'll come and take all your shit. It's the social media stuff. And now you've got people who are calculated. They're like going into research, like, why they don't need our imports, right? Like there's guys online literally diving into why they don't need Canadian steel and why they don't need Canadian timber and why they don't need Canadian auto manufacturing.
Yeah.
And the point is that like, we know you don't need it to survive, but when everyone shares and we've all got lots of everything, that's when things work the best for everyone. When not to saturate the market, but to give everybody access and a good, fair price. Like that's the whole point of this free trade between us and Mexico and everyone else on earth, really. But I just see, like, I've said this before and it's still happening. Everyone's losing. Trump's been kind of quiet like the last week, week and a
Don't
half.
call him out, John.
Well, he was so loud before. Maybe that's why he sounds quiet now. But he's been a little quiet on it. So I'm wondering if this tariff stuff goes away by maybe spring break or something like that. Because I feel like people must be I know he gets up every day. He watches the markets. He must know it's bad, right? Like it's not working.
Dwayne says, they just say they need time. That's what politicians say. It's going to take us some time to fix the mess.
4 years.
That the previous 3.5 years. And then Dwayne says, Jasper, don't give this separation nonsense unwarranted attention. Meantime, others are saying, no, this is serious. It's more serious than I've ever heard it in past. Listen, I'm not going to start pretending like I think Alberta's about to separate. I'm not going to start presenting the separation movement as bigger than it is. But I do think it's interesting to see that theme recurring and popping up and flaring up again. And in the context of, and we said this and we kind of said, this is very obvious to say, but like everybody, pretty much everybody, like honestly, if there's somebody right now that's going to go on the record and say, no, I saw this happening. I saw Justin Trudeau resigning and the Liberals bringing in Mark Carney and turning around their polling by 30 points and coming back and maybe forming another bullshit. Nobody was saying that. Everybody was like, gosh, look at this polling. Pierre Poilievre, geez, look at this. And who was gleefully celebrating more than anybody else? Understandably, Conservatives. And in particular, Western Canadian Conservatives that felt like this government, the Trudeau Liberal government, was hostile to Western Canadian interests. So they've been basically planning the parade, right? And so now I think that there's been kind of this moment of reckoning. And to be clear, Pierre Poilievre could still be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Conservatives definitely could win this election at the end of April. But if they don't, I think that for some people, now whether that's 150,000 people or 500,000 people or a couple million people across the country, it's going to stir up like this, well, what can we do about it now? Like, what are our options now? Right?
Have a go bag ready.
Have a go bag ready.
Not just for separatists.
Go to where?
For everybody.
Go to where, right? Or like another convoy to Ottawa or whatever. But people, and I'm not mocking the fact that folks, you want to, it's like in so many ways as a child would act out, as an adult, what do we want to do? We want to take action. And what's the action you can take? If you don't feel like the democratic process is fair to your province, if you feel like the election is determined before polls close in Alberta, which is sometimes the case, often the case actually, then you're going to look to measures that are a little bit more extreme, and breaking up the country would be one of those.
Separatists.
Yeah.
Separatists. Just vote. That's what we should do. Like, it was amazing to me that there was a record number of voting in the U.S. election, especially this last time, but it was still 60-something%. You'd think that when they say record, it would be 75%. But it's also funny when people say, well, half the country didn't vote for whatever. Well, we don't know what the other 40% of people were thinking. I'm talking about the states now, but in general, everywhere, when there's an election for a leader or a federal election or a presidential election, there's a large population of the voting population that just doesn't vote. Go vote. And what are those people thinking? Are they thinking that there's no viable option for me at all? Or that voting in general means nothing? Or are they banking on, I've seen the polls, I know how it's going to go, I'm trusting my neighbors and whoever? Are they just busy and couldn't get the day off work? You're legally allowed to ask for the time off. All these questions go through my head, Ryan, when I see those numbers. Why aren't they bigger?
You're 100% right about people being legally allowed to request time off to go vote.
You can say I need to leave 2 hours early from work because there's a voting line.
And your employer has to grant that to you. And for some people, that is no big deal at all. For other people, I wonder though, that would be I don't know, for some people, I'm thinking of one summer I worked on a furniture manufacturing line, and if you were lazy, if you had to, man, I'm telling you, it had the punch card. This is old school, but it had the punch card and everything. It was like the Flintstones, the whistle, the whistle would blow for your break
with the bird.
You'd have he'd pull on the tail, but they would have I think it was 10 or 15 minutes, and guys would run outside to crush a dart real quick and get back in. But if you were away from your station on the assembly line for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, the whole thing would back up and you'd screw the whole team.
I was just going to say that.
One
you get behind at work, I understand.
So for some folks, it's it's true that you can request time off to go vote, but I bet there's a lot of people that there's no way that they would.
Yeah. It just amazes me though that when we talk about, the feeling of the country, I'm always like, man, there's a large section of this country we can't even poll because they do not give a fuck about even going out and voting. Then I start wondering why that is. Maybe they just know, they think the outcome is already called. Is that like indicative of why polls suck?
Yeah, maybe
because they tell people not to go out and vote because it's so one-sided.
Well, tell us. I mean, this would be an interesting one. If you're an engaged enough Real Talker to take the time to send us an email, but not. Well, I don't want to say you're not an engaged citizen because I'm already assuming why you're not voting. So that's on me. Maybe I'll just STF you and ask you to tell us if you're a Real Talker that does not vote, even if it's 2 sentences. Send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com and let us know why. Mm-hmm. And I'd be curious to know. I bet you for a lot of people, for some people, you just feel like honestly nothing really changes. Nothing really changes.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe
my vote doesn't matter.
Maybe, yeah, or even just with changing government, like the sun still rises and sets. My day is still my day. For some people, you're just not politically involved. And I can understand that. I mean, I can't personally understand that. I would love to chat with a person like that and try my best to inspire them to participate in democracy.
I would love to be that person. I would love to be someone who's just outside of that fog, outside of that cloud. Maybe you live in a small town, 5 hours from here or something. You're listening right now and your life is simple. It's easy. You don't interact with a lot of people. Let me come live on your ranch, please.
You're off the grid. You're powering your property with solar by Kuby.
You've got
because
handed
you went
down
to
land.
Kuby.ca and you got a free solar quote. And that's because you heard on Real Talk that from now until June, Kuby is taking every single customer of theirs. Go to Kuby.ca to learn more about this promotion. Every single customer that purchases a solar power system, and I've already asked them, I wanted to know the details on this. I said, Real Talkers are going to want to know. You don't even have to have been paid in full. You have to just pay your deposit. Panels don't have to be installed yet. There's still snow on folks' roofs. But if you've signed up for Solar by Kuby and paid your deposit, by the end of June, you're going to qualify to win $5,000 off your solar power system. How great is that? They have a summer solstice event coming up on the 20th of June, and they're going to draw 2 names. And those are going to be 2 Kuby customers who've paid their deposits, and each of those 2 Kuby customers are going to have $5,000 transferred right back to their bank account. How great is that? It's all part of Kuby's 10-year anniversary celebration. A huge shout out from our team to theirs. We're proud to partner with the team at Kuby, Canada's fastest growing solar installer. What a cool conversation we had just the other day about neurodiversity at work. Hey, Johnny, I absolutely love this one with Tara Langan. She's the
great show.
Well, she's the straw that stirs the drink at Career TLC, and she's partnered up with Athabasca University to offer a brand new course on neurodiversity in the workplace. Really, really neat stuff. I had no idea that 50%, that half of Gen Zers identify as neurodivergent. I had no idea. So Tara kind of gets us up to speed on that. She talks to us about how workplaces are evolving, and then she tees up this Power Ed course at Athabasca University. How are employers adjusting to this? What are they doing to attract and retain top talent from that next generation of corporate leaders? You can learn more by checking out the website at athabascau.ca, and you can find our interview with Tara in our archives on YouTube and on the podcast. That's just from a few episodes ago. Also wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Alberta Views magazine. This is the magazine for engaged citizens at albertaviews.ca. I absolutely loved our conversation with Trina Moyles a few episodes back on her story, her feature, her cover story, Problem Grizzly or Problem Politics. Trina takes us into grizzly wildlife management in the province of Alberta under Danielle Smith's UCP government and what the biologists are saying about it. It's an interview well worth your time, and if you'd like to support journalism, independent fact-check journalism at Alberta Views, you can sign up for a subscription today at 50% off the annual rate. That's $20, everybody. $20 for the whole year delivered to your door when you use the promo code AVRJ at albertaviews.ca. Alberta Views, Ryan Jesperson. AVRJ is the promo code at albertaviews.ca. Tomorrow's Real Talk, that'll be the Thursday edition. That's the 27th of March. We will continue to focus on the issues that are emerging as these federal leaders tour the country, trying to grab your attention and secure your vote. We're going to get to more of your comments. Our inbox has been banging right now. We want to thank you for that. We're going to spend a little bit more time handing the microphone over to you. And coming up on Friday, we've got another partnership. This will be the third of 3 that we'll announce. It's all part of our expansive coverage of this federal election. We appreciate you being a part of it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.